Hello, I'm Cynthia Schiller. Please like and subscribe so we can help and heal one day at a time. Today we're talking about why is it so confusing? Why do we care? Trying to figure out what exactly went wrong. Is our partner a narcissist? And why do we care so much? Like that's the thing. Like, why do we care so much? Why do we get so confused, so wrapped up in it? And I like to use an analogy. Think about a murder and we're at trial, we're in the jury, and after a while, we get a little tired of being there all the time. We have other things we'd like to do, kind of start feeling a little selfish, like I need to do this. This is my duty, and this is somebody's life that's on the line. So we take the time and we analyze every aspect because it's somebody else's life, not even ours. We don't even know the person, but we're analyzing every little detail, because if we miss that one detail, it can change the outcome. So we really cared about this relationship. It was really important to us. So we don't want to miss that one life-changing detail. We want to understand it. As we went through the relationship, we really did try to do our best. We understand there's overcompensation. We get confused. Were we the selfish one? Should we have understood them? And we're going to talk a little bit about the narcissist speech patterns, why that increases our confusion, some red flags to look out for, some things that we can look back on to try to understand. And I honestly feel that healing, until we understand what we went through, because it's mind blowing, like what happened, we feel guilty, like maybe we did something wrong. Maybe there's a chance we can rectify it, or if this Hoover comes, that this time we can do things different. So we analyze every aspect because it's that important to us. But then we look back and we're like, should we have let up a little bit? Now, when you're in a relationship and you try to communicate with somebody, look at the speech pattern. Do they turn it around on you where they're like, you pissed me off? Or do they say, that hurt me, I need some time? So a lot of times they will ignore us. So we try to understand, like, do they just need some time? Did I blow it out of proportion that much when I was just trying to communicate with them? And then we also know that people do sometimes need time to process. It's good to let people process some of the words, and usually the outcome can be good. But then we start thinking, like, this is taking a long time. Like, I gave you some time, or we didn't want to be needy. Of course, we want that text back right away. Hopefully that night, next day comes. And several days go by and we're doing everything right. We're in a relationship, whether it's a lovership, situationship, marriage. There's a time where it's like, this is starting to feel like I'm being blown off. And then, we wait a little bit longer and then we reach out and it makes it worse. Like, you don't hear back until you're at your breaking point. And usually when you're at your breaking point, a lot of times that's when they'll come back. They'll give you the attention when they think that they'll lose you. But during that whole time, you could be crying, you could be reaching out, you could be saying, I just want to know, are we ever going to talk again? And they don't care what you're going through. You're caring about them. You're saying, look, I know you need some time. When can we talk? And they could tell you 2 years from now, but they have no empathy towards your feelings. The way that they talk to you is a red flag. Did they turn it around on you? Did they acknowledge the question at hand? Or are they going around in circles? They're blaming you so they don't have to answer the question, which makes it even more confusing and makes your head spin. So you're like, what were we even talking about? And at the end of the conversation, nothing's resolved. Some other things is that silence. Sometimes people do shut down. Maybe they felt bombarded. Were we that aggressive towards them? Did we talk the wrong way? Could we have said things differently? And then also in the real world, that's the thing, we got to balance this narcissism and the real world. And sometimes people don't get back to us if they're just not into us. But a lot of you guys are married and they should be into you, and especially long relationships. And hopefully they're not dating somebody else. Maybe you have an arrangement, you're in the beginning period of dating. So sometimes, they don't exactly know what to say, but they should at least acknowledge you. They should answer your questions. And if they're not really interested in you, sometimes people do in the real world just kind of not get back to you all the time. Like, I don't want you to think I'm all this serious. I don't want to feed into this because then you're going to think we're in a real relationship. But when you are in a real relationship, there needs to be a balance, some respect, some good communication. Narcissists are not good communicators. They don't answer yes or no questions very well. They spin things, they lie. Um, they might answer your question, but they'll give it with false promises. They have no intent on either changing or keeping that as like an ongoing promise. So they'll say what they need to say to get their way. And it's kind of like people in high school. Sometimes we say things just because we're in the heat of the moment, getting caught up in the moment. We're not even really thinking about the future. But narcissists are, if you're at this channel, you're probably an adult and you need to handle things in an adult way. Over time, you realize what hurts people, how to have a better outcome instead of just in the moment outcome. As children, there's times that, we promise, we'll be best friends forever. We'll talk forever. We'll meet back up here in 10 years. And we don't realize everything. But as an adult, you realize, you tell somebody, how special they are, and that you'll keep in contact. They don't have parents saying, look, you got to go to bed. You can't use the phone. They don't have parents saying it's too expensive to call long distance like it was back in the day. We had to pay for long distance. But they don't have anybody breathing down their necks, telling them what they can and can't do. Or you need to do your homework. You can't make a phone call now. The people that we've been in relationships with are adults, and there's ways to work around issues. So even if you guys have an agreement or a beginning of a relationship where there is an outside party, they can still work around it. It doesn't take a week to get back to somebody. So they'll give you excuses. Sometimes, usually they won't be honest. They'll say there's nobody else. They'll say they're with their sister or their mom. And so we believe that because everything seems like, okay, you're going to see your mom. And all the lies that they tell us keep our heads spinning. Sometimes we'll catch them in lies, and their excuses usually are flat out lies with more lies. And so we're trying to figure out, like, okay, this part makes sense, this part doesn't, that could happen. And we start getting more and more confused. And part of the way we can tell if a narcissist knows what they are doing is if they're consistent in the way that they talk to people. Like if you're in a relationship and they're rude to you, they talk down to you, but then when they get on a phone call with somebody from work, is it Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde? All of a sudden they're kind, polite, uplifting, complimentary. And then as soon as that phone hangs up, they go back to treating you the wrong way. And usually the person that's closest to them is the one that they treat the worst. It's a lot of times seen as threatening to them. And I hate to say this, and this is kind of a sad story. My grandmother passed away, and I kind of didn't spend time with her. I knew she was going to pass away, and that was because it was too much for me to handle. We had a great relationship. It's not a narcissistic thing. It was more than I can handle, and I regret it to this day. Narcissists usually don't have that regret. They don't have the remorse. She was in a coma, so she didn't really know what was going on. I visited her a few times, but I kind of shut down. So that does happen in life. So we relate things to our personal experiences, so we get even more confused. Are they shutting down because right now this is too much to handle? But I wasn't abusive to my grandma. I didn't talk down to her. I didn't blow her off. That was just overwhelming at that time. We had a great relationship, except that. And there is the remorse. Now, narcissists, they can see our pain. We're reaching out to them, trying to make things better. We feel guilty, like, do we overdo it? Do we need to back off? So we back off and we wait. And then all this time goes by thinking that they would come and rebalance it. So we try to rebalance it, which they just punish us even more instead of communication. Some people do have problems expressing their feelings. They just don't know how. Maybe they haven't really dated all that much. But a lot of times narcissists, they've dated a lot and they know what they're doing. They see our pain and they just disregard it. They don't say, I understand, I'm mad at you right now. This is upsetting me. Instead of you pissed me off, they they relate it like, I get you. This is what I'm going through, as opposed to me, you messed up, me. And we're not used to that. And then we try to work around it and they just bring us in that whole loophole again. Still things are unanswered. We're still confused. They promise to make things better. We come to an agreement and that agreement isn't held up. And then we get confused, like, were we the selfish one? Like if you had plans and, there's times, let's say, uh, not all of us have kids, but let's say you had a kid, they had a dance recital, and there's times you're like, I just really need to sleep. I'm so tired. And then you're like, do I cancel? Do I take that away from my kid? This is something they've been working on. So we think like, who wins this time? Like I'm really tired, and it's me, but we do this like mind thing where we try to balance it out and like, okay, I will sacrifice, I can sleep later. But there's times if you're really, really sick, it's sad, but the child might have to miss out on that dance recital because our needs in that time were more strong. So we do that in the relationship with the narcissist. Are we being selfish? Are they just not budging? Is everything always about them? And we also know there can be arguments. Arguments are normal, and usually they're healthy for relationships to have disagreements, not throwing things or hitting each other, but discussing things. And sometimes we get passionate about it. We get frustrated, but we try to communicate. We don't try to make false promises just to shut the person up. We do try to come to an agreement. If we come to that agreement, we try to stick to it. The narcissist doesn't. They just want you to shut up so they can get back to doing what they're doing, so they can have their needs met, whether it's sexual or you're going to cook dinner for them, just shut you up. And then they get back on track to their happy little life that is very superficial. They're very fragile. Little things that you do can upset them. And that gets even more confusing. Whether, you didn't do something exactly as they wanted you to do it. The way you cleaned your house, did you do it in the right order? You cleaned the house. But if you left something undone because time ran out, or somebody stopped by and like the plumber to fix something and it disrupted your cleaning, and then you get yelled at because they wanted it cleaned in a certain way. They were ready to be in the kitchen, and do they pick up and help, or do they get mad at you? So it's really confusing. And did we set the stage for this confusion or argument or disassemblance of our relationship? Do we set the stage? Do we do something wrong? Is it fixable? We try to communicate. They love not to communicate. And when they do, it's not in the right way. It doesn't answer questions. It turns it back on us, has us questioning things, and there's no resolution. And in a relationship, there should be a resolution, compromise, and their compromises are basically, like I said, just shut up so it can all turn back on me. And it's so confusing. Like, how long do we give somebody before we know if they're ignoring us? And we go by what we feel. Treat others as you want to be treated. Never treat somebody in a way that you wouldn't want to be treated. Even strangers on the street, they say hi to you in a kind, safe area, and you can't say hi back. I does it even matter if you say hi back? Like, is it that big of a deal? Just say it. You don't know the person. Are you kind of bored or busy in your own mind thought? But just respect people. Just respect people. Don't disrespect them, because we'd want that too. We say hi to somebody, it feels terrible. One of the worst things you can do is to ignore somebody, and they do that a lot. At the drop of a hat, without even when you explain how deeply that hurts, how damaging it is, how it will never lead to a good outcome. Silence is very abusive because it's a mental decision. They decided to ignore you. You explained how much it hurt, why you need the communication. You tell them it's a breakdown of a relationship. You're in a relationship and you're trying to fix it, and they're not receptive. But then they come back, and then you do talk, and then you get the silent treatment again, or the gaslighting. Everything's your fault. Everything is confusing. An average person, um, sometimes we know that, okay, like, are they just not interested in me? Are they losing interest? And so we try to do everything right, whether we change our hair, our makeup, our clothes, our friends, our activities, our interests. We change everything. We go back to who we were when we first met them, and enhance that, because that's who they fell in love with. But were they really in love? And it's confusing with the love bombing stage. Like, of course they were in love with me. They said all these things. They did all these things. They put me above. Did they put you above, or were they showing off? Were they trying to have you talk like, oh, he's the best or she's the best? They did this and they're so special, and they get their ego stroked. Even sometimes if they don't see it, they know that they are being praised, and they crave that. Some of them just crave going after someone. And so they'll pull back. So they lose interest and go after somebody else if we come on too hard. So when we back off, that's a lot of times when the Hoover becomes. But if they were in a serious relationship, whether it's a long-term dating, or especially marriages, whether you live together or committed, proclaimed your status, they should be willing to work through things. They should know there's ups and downs. It shouldn't always be about them. They failed to reflect on what our feelings are. And that's the hardest part, especially after those false promises, because you expect. And a lot of times we don't set the right boundaries, because you should just be able to come to an agreement. Why do we have to set boundaries? Just call me. If I reach out to you, just reach back. And then it throws the balance off, and it just gets worse and worse. And eventually it tips the scale to where it seems like we're never coming back. And it's so easy for them to move on. That breaks our heart even more. And then we want to find answers, and they're the ones that know the answers. Like, there's times you're like, did we even break up? Like, are we still together? A lot of times they do not tell you it's over. They just ghost you. And the silent treatment, ghosting, is so incredibly painful. And it is like they're stuck in a juvenile state. Why deal with it? It's too much of a hassle. But this is somebody supposedly they loved. Like, looking back on different relationships you've had throughout life, like, you still have a tender spot in your heart for that person if you truly love them. Doesn't mean you are going back to them. Life went on and it didn't work out, whether you moved away or they had a job or they just didn't pick you. It was the beginning stages. But when somebody commits to you and is serious about you and makes really no effort to tell the truth, to be faithful, the way they talk to us, they talk down to us. And so, okay, we kind of relaxed ourselves for a little bit, which is normal. They're relaxing themselves, but we still love them. We overlook their flaws, but we're people too. And a lot of times it's the littlest thing. And even if we correct it, you already pissed them off, or they'll talk behind your back. They'll spy on you to see, are you upholding your end of the bargain? And it just starts to overwhelm us. And a lot of times we do need to set boundaries with narcissists, and it gets so scary to do that. Normally you can set boundaries with your friends. Please don't call after 10 o'clock. I go to bed early, or, sometimes the kids take naps. Please call before you come over. But if you say that to a narcissist, that doesn't sit right. They want to call you when they want to call you, even if it's once a year, 6 times a day, whatever they want. They have different boundaries. Theirs are limitless. There are no boundaries. They can do what they want. but you call them at certain times or you expect a text back, they can go weeks, months without texting you back. And then once you do that to them, it's a whole different story. And we try to understand it. We try to fix it because it's that important to us. And just their flat out dismissal of our feelings. That's what's so hard to understand. You don't have to be with me anymore. You don't have to talk to me anymore. I'm telling you I'm hurting and I just want to know, where do we go from here? I love you. I want to work it out. They don't even say anything. So let's help and heal together. Comment below. It does get really, really confusing. And a lot of times it just keeps getting worse. It's hard to get over someone because every time they come back, they do that exact same thing with that love bombing, to where this is it, we made it, we figured it out. But was it the truth that they told us? Does the cycle continue? Will it ever stop? They don't empathize. It's hard to change. And if they do, they're just going through the motions till they just get tired of doing that. So comment below, please like and subscribe, hit that notification bell for daily videos. I'll see you soon. Have a great day.